G'day folks, MBS here. Today I'm going to tell you about a few little secrets that you probably don't know about the Varajet carburetor. Varajet, you say? Holy shit, throw it in the rubbish bin. Yeah, I hear that all the time. But they are a great carburetor. And why? Why are they so, why do I think they're so great? Well, quite a few things. Spread ball, okay? Great spread ball carburetor. You could virtually look at this and say it's half a quadrijet. Basically, that's what they are. And I've got one sitting on my Mitsubishi 2.6 litre 4G54 engine with the use of adapter plate like this one that I made up. And this particular one we had that fitted on a Suzuki Sierra with a 1.6 litre Vitara engine in it. Went like a shower of shit, eh? He was very, very happy with it, except it was too lean cruising. You have to realise the Varajet is a lean carburetor. They were purposely designed like that for the, I think they came out on the VH Commodores, VK Commodores, Camiras, quite a few Yank cars had them as well. I'm not familiar with those at all. But there are quite a few different types. We'll cover that in a minute. But we'll continue on with advantages of this thing. Adjustable main jet. I bet you did not know that. Yeah, they have an adjustable main jet, which makes them very versatile as a carburetor conversion. And that's why I went for them on my Mitsubishi. Beautiful carby. It's been on there for 8 years now. I've had that carburetor, I haven't touched it. I set the mixtures using a wideband oxygen sensor fitted into the exhaust, and I haven't touched it since. Over the Mikuni, I have got city driving an extra 50 kilometres per tank, sometimes up to 80 kilometres out of a tank. On highway driving, 630 kilometres, which is about nearly 100 kilometres better. It blew me away, absolutely blew me away. And this carby here is actually one that was first fitted to my car. I've pulled it apart because the accelerator pump started playing up. I now have a Camira Varajet fitted to it. A little bit more adjustability to it. But yeah, what a great carburetor. So I'd like to talk a little bit about it and give you some ideas of how to set them up, even on your standard car. The problem is, not many people know what to do with them, especially idle speed. They adjust the wrong screws, and of course they stuff the carby up. Once they've adjusted the idle speed, using the idle speed screw in the base, this little sucker in here, once you touch that, it's Red Rover all over. You've stuffed up the calibration of the carburetor, and you won't return it back again until you remove the carburetor and reset that adjustment screw. And I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Idle speed is actually set in the throttle body in here. Okay, there's a big screw that goes in there, and that adjusts air bypass past the throttle plate. All right, that's how you adjust your idle speed, no other way. Okay, touch the throttle, forget about it. And this is where you get talked into replacing your Varajet because the guy stuffed up the tuning of it and adjusted it wrong. You got it back and gone, shit, my car's not running very well, it's using a lot of fuel, etc, etc, etc. So you get talked into fitting a Holly. Nah, what a bad idea that is. Putting a 350 Holly on, oh no. If you know someone that knows something about these, you'll get far better fuel economy, as much power, if not a little bit more, because these are rated at 375 CFM, wide open throttle. So a little bit more than the Holly. So you get the best of both worlds, guys. A small primary, look how small this thing is. Small primary, large secondary. Just like I said earlier, 4-barrel Rochester. And that's what convinced me to put it on my Mitso, because I wanted something with small primary that would match the Mikuni, and I wanted a large secondary for the power. And this carburetor gave it to me. Beautiful. Best thing I ever did to that car, I tell you what. Saved me lots of money in fuel because of the extra fuel economy. However, in saying that, remember I said earlier, it's a lean carburetor, and too right it's lean. I am running currently, I reckon 15.5, 16 to 1 cruising air fuel ratio. Full power is okay. I'm running about 12.3 under full power. Under power valve 12.5. Wide open throttle about 12.3. So it works very well, and I'm not getting any surging, running at 15.5 or leaner, which is great. Unless it's cold, of course. It's a little bit too lean when it's cold, but we have a choke, don't we? We can reachen it up when it's cold. So let's go into a little bit more detail, hey? And I think the first thing I should cover is the base plate. Why you don't adjust the base plate. When you're, let's see, where's this one here? There it is. This one here, I've got all the linkages off. With the throttle shaft shut, you cannot see light through there. If I was to put the light through here, this would be totally darkened off. That's how the carburetor should be set up to idle. No air should be bypassing that plate, okay? And to do that, you have to back off this screw all the way until that is shut. And then you take this in, put a 1 thou feeler gauge in between the linkage there and the stop screw. And when you get 1 thou tight clearance, then you can come here and turn it another 1/8 of a turn just to make that touch. All right, but you do not want to open the throttle. If the throttle sticks, like you have to, you know, use some effort to open it because it's jammed in there, then you are able to turn that maybe another 1/8 of a turn, if that. All right, but the whole idea is that you shouldn't see sunlight through there when this is adjusted correctly. You have your mixture screw in there. Okay, a little tiny screw that quite often seizes up. And in this one here, we've got a conversion kit fitted to it. A brass bushing goes in there, and we now have an external screw. It makes it much, much easier to adjust. This actually was the one that was on my car. Okay, so never touch that screw once it's set. All right, once you've done it, don't touch it. Do your idle adjustments by the correct way. And here we have this carburetor. There's your idle adjustment screw, the big screw in there. They call that an air bypass, all right? Now this particular one has got an air shut-off valve. When this closes, de-energizes, it shuts the air bypass off, and obviously the car stops because it's not getting enough airflow for it to idle because the throttle shaft is totally sealed off and shut, yeah? So that's why they put that there, so they can bypass the air past the throttle disc. Okay, so when you're setting these things up, that's all you need to know. Idle speed, boom, boom, mixture screw, okay? Most people set the mixture screw a little richer than what they are stock standard, understandably, because they idle a little bit better. But as soon as you touch the idle speed screw, or actually it's not called an idle speed screw, it's not even a base idle speed. Like in the some older carburetors, they use that for a slow idle base. But with that screwed in the way I just described to you, the car won't run. It won't be able to idle because there's no air getting past that disc. The air comes from the bypass screw, all right, that we adjusted here, all right? So there's the first thing you need to know about tuning these things, okay? The next thing you need to know is the adjustable main jet. This is gotchas. I bet you just didn't know it had one. There it is. It's hiding behind that plug, all right? I've made it clear on that one. I'll pull out another one that's already had it removed. There she is there. There is a screw in there, all right? That is your adjustable main jet. And even that is in various positions, yeah? So they're not all the same. I've got 3 different versions of this, of where that Welsh plug is hiding. Some of them are easy to get out, some of them are not. This one here is not. It's an aluminium plug that's jammed in there, and it has to be drilled and removed that way to get access to that screw. Now, while I'm talking about that screw that's in there, the adjustable main jet, for me to build 3 carburetors when I did my car, I used 10 Varajets, and I only got 3 that were any good. And that's because no one ever takes them out. So all the time you've owned the car, if you've owned it from you or not, doesn't matter, second hand, no one's ever taken that wash plug out and removed that screw. The screw seizes and the carb is, I reckon, unusable after that because you can't adjust it anymore. And adjusting that main jet is pretty important if you want to get the best out of the Varajet, especially if you're retrofitting it to something like I did on the Mitsubishi. I needed to be able to adjust that main jet to the best air-fuel ratio. Okay, so where does that tie into? Well, that main jet is in a little hole right down the bottom. That's your main jet, or the inlet to your fuel to that main jet circuit that you can adjust. All right, this rod here is not your main jet. Your fuel does not come through this rod to make it cruise. This is a power piston. Goes in there, goes down into that jet, which connects down into the main jet circuit, into the bottom of that well. So the fuel enters through that tiny hole at the bottom and also enters through this jet when this pops up. Okay, vacuum holds this down generally, so no fuel enters through your power circuit. It's all main jet. When you apply full throttle, this pops up because there's no vacuum, allows extra fuel to go through. You can see the needle is tapered, so it allows extra metered fuel to go through to give you power. A big problem with these is, of course, these fall out. You can see the crimp mark there. Okay, that's crimped in there so it can't come out, but they do. Over time, they fall out. What happens when they fall out? This jet stays down. It doesn't work anymore, all right? So you never have power valve, so the thing runs too lean. And then you wonder why it's got no power. Yeah, look, easy fixes, that sort of thing. Yeah, they've just been given a bad rap for nothing. Okay, otherwise there's nothing really wrong with these carburetors. A little bit finicky on the accelerator pump circuit because there's this little plastic knob there. Yeah, you got to dig that out most of the time. You can't get spare parts for them like that anymore. Yeah, so it makes it a little bit awkward sometimes. What's another feature that we've got? How about this one? This one does not use an air solenoid like this one does. This one uses a fuel shut-off solenoid. I believe these came out in the VKs and maybe late VHs, and some of the VKs of EST had another switch mounted on the throttle up here somewhere on the accelerator pump that controlled your EST timing, gave it some input. All right, so this works a little bit differently to the air shut-off. Instead, you still use the same screw to adjust the idle speed, that big one underneath it, but this will shut off the fuel when you turn the ignition off. So obviously the engine can't run when you cut the fuel supply off. So that works good too. This is the one I've got currently fitted on my car, the air shut-off solenoid. So yeah. Now, the spread bore side, what makes it so great? Well, it doesn't work like a normal carburetor where you open up the throttle and both throttles open, yeah? But the second one doesn't open till it's required. Works similar to an SU carburetor, all right? So that's adjustable. You can adjust the metering rod distance in there, so if you're having trouble getting the right mixture and everything, you can adjust that rod if you want to. You could also change the spring tension. That's why I chose the Camira Varajet, because I can actually adjust that spring tension, and I've got it set fairly tight. All right, so it comes in a little later. And I don't have any flat spots, bogs, or anything like that. It opens up very smoothly. From the word go, I can just go wham, open her up. And the second barrel won't open straight away, but when airspeed gets high enough, that will start opening and deliver extra fuel. Phew, Beautiful. No problems whatsoever. What's another thing I can tell you about these things? I've pretty well divulged the secret here that hardly anyone knows about the adjustable main jet. I mean, yeah, look, if you've got a Varajet still on your car and you want to adjust it, first thing you should do is take that wash plug out and see if that screw is seized up. If it's seized up, there's not much you can do, okay? It doesn't make it very adjustable whatsoever. You can't do anything about it. So if it's running lean or it's running rich, you can't adjust that out because you can't adjust your main jet. But I'd be looking for other faults. If your carb is starting to run lean for some reason, I'd be looking at float level settings and that sort of stuff. Blockages, dirt in the jets and that sort of thing. It's quite possible because the tolerance down here would be pretty small when that jet is screwed in. There wouldn't be much room in there. A piece of shit could get in there and actually block up that main jet a little bit and cause it to run lean. And of course the other lean problem is if your power jet falls out. Yeah, that little sucker there, if that comes off and just drops down into your jet, obviously it's going to not work, is it? So that'll be another fault these things have got. Solenoid problems is another thing. If that shits itself, obviously the car doesn't idle. So what do people do? The mechanics go and adjust that screw to get it to idle again. Oh my God, I don't know. Now the whole thing is, when this is fully shut, like I said, when you back that off and it's fully shut, the progression port is not open, okay? The progression port actually covers that disc just, all right? So as soon as you crack that open, the progression port starts to work. So hence, if someone uses that to adjust your idle speed, they've already stuffed up your mixture screw adjustment. That's going to let extra fuel in and stuff up the calibration of your progression. So it doesn't work too good. Hence, you start using more fuel and it cascades from there and you get problems with your carburetor and then someone talks you into fitting a Holly. Yeah? All right. Enough on the Holly. I personally don't do it. I've never fitted a Holly onto one of these carburetors because I've convinced the customers I can fix their carburetor as long as the main jet is still serviceable. And every customer so far has been very happy to keep the Varajet on the engine. Here's just another thing you could do too. You can change your spring underneath the power jet, change the tension so that you can either bring the power jet on earlier or delay it to be later. Now I've got mine delayed in my car to about 4 inches of vacuum before this actually lifts up, which gives me pretty good response. I know when the power valve is cut in, I get a register straight away on my airflow meter digital gauge that I've gone rich. I know the power valve is cut in. This is another cause of concern, these little fellows. Now what does that little sucker do? Well, it stops the second barrel. Let's see if I've got that in picture. That comes along here, sucks in when there's vacuum applied from the base, and it basically just stops the secondaries opening up way too early. When you open it up to full throttle, vacuum drops off, that goes there, boom, second barrel will open up. As you can see, I like my Varajets, okay? I think it's one of probably the better conversions I've done in a long time, especially on my Mitsubishi. And for you guys that have got the Commodores, don't throw these things away unless you have to, all right? Check to see if you've got the adjustable main jet, it still works. If it doesn't, okay, I'll forgive you. You can throw a Holly on if you really need to, but you really need to check that your idle speed screw, I've said it again, it's not an idle speed screw, but everyone refers it to as that, but that's not what it does. Make sure it's backed off and just touching the throttle disc, and that your throttle discs are shut. Now you'll have to probably remove the carburetor to do that. all right, to have a good look and make sure it's totally shut. And then screw your screw out, because if your car has been set idling on that screw, when you back it right off, obviously it's not going to idle. So you're going to have to screw that big screw out below the fuel solenoid or your air cut-off solenoid. Screw it out a bit so that it'll idle when you start it up. Okay, and as always, look, these things are set lean. You're supposed to set them lean, but you'll be forgiven for taking the mixture screw out another quarter of a turn just to get a better quality idle out of it. All right, I've purposely set my Mitsubishi lean. It's not sitting on 13.8 where it roughly should be. I've got it on about 14.5, so it's considerably leaner than it should be. But I'm chasing economy, and that's where it works great for me. Idle's just that little bit rougher, of course. That's the way it is, all right? But if you don't like the rough idle, you could screw that mixture screw out just a little bit more and give it a slightly better idle. But the problem with that is you might be a little rich on part throttle, all right? Because remember, the transfer slot, the progression ports, get uncovered as soon as you touch that throttle. The minutest movement, and that port is uncovered, delivers extra fuel. Yeah, so you might find a calibration problem there if you've set the idle mixture too rich. All right, especially if you've set it using a vacuum gauge or best idle speed, like a lot of people do on old cars. But remember, your Commodore isn't an old car. Okay, it's pretty more advanced. So don't go screwing that mixture screw out to give you the best idle speed or the highest vacuum, because that'll just be too rich. And as soon as you hit part throttle, you'll be over rich, and you'll take the carby off and throw it away and put a holly on because you're using too much fuel. It's a vicious circle, isn't it? But that's the way it is. So if you adjust these properly, they go very well. All right, guys, I hope that was informative for you, and you learned something from it. And look at your Varajet in a slightly different way. All right, hope you can adjust yours back to where it should be, so you don't get angry with it and toss it and throw it away. Okay. Now, if you'd like to know more about the Varajet exploded diagrams, a little bit more information, jump on my website, mbs.id.au, and go to the carburetor section and look up Rochester. And in there'll be a page on Varajet carburetors, and that may give you a little bit more information than what I've told you here.